Hello and welcome to the Opening the Gates January 2025 UK property market update. As you can tell, I'm doing the classic thing of forgetting what year it is, even though I'm recording this towards at the start of February. But yeah, we're going to get straight into it. January 2025 UK property market update. This is the second installment of these this year. The last one was reviewing the 2024 market. This is the first one this year, which is actually looking at 2025 market activity. So yeah, January 25, how has the market performed? So as always, gonna jump into it and run through all the stats. So to start with January 25 market update, I'm not going to concentrate. Let's just zoom out a bit on that. There we go. I'm not going to concentrate on the left-hand column, January to December, because December's a quieter month, obviously seasonally with Christmas. So I'm just going to concentrate on the middle and right-hand column. So middle column 25 to 24 comparison, and then the 6-year average for January compared to 2025. So yeah, if we look at properties on the market, 8.5% up on January last year and a whopping 21% up on the 6-year average. So variety of different ways to look at this. Great news, increased confidence in the market, more sellers coming to market equals more choice for buyers. Nothing bad can come of this increase in property for sale. Caveat on that is that if there's too many properties for sale, that can cause house prices to drop significantly. However, I had a quick look at my notes before recording, and in Milton Keynes, my local area or local authority, even now with stock levels significantly higher than a year ago and 6-year average, there's still a whopping 47% down on January 2008 when the market started declining, when we hit recession and had the boom to bust property market. So for anyone watching this, if you want to know what that stat is for January 2008 in your local market, let me know, and it will help you educate your market that yes, there is more choice available, which is good. It will stunt house price growth, more competition for sellers, so they're more realistic on price. Hopefully, bring more buyers to market because of more choice. It is not going to cause house price drops with stock levels the way they are, because they're still almost 50% down on where they were best part of 15 years ago. And as we've seen with where interest rate levels are now, obviously lows to averages, but call it 5%. We've clearly seen last year that 5% interest rates have still meant house price growth. It seemed to be, and I don't know if it's more of a psychological thing, but 18 months ago when interest rates had a 6 in front of them, that's where we were seeing house price depreciation rather than appreciation. So new listings up 7.5% and almost 60 on last year and almost 16% on 6-year average. So again, sellers are coming to market. They've not been put off in January by the impending stamp duty changes, and that's the same for buyers as well, with sales agreed up 17% on last year and 12% up on the 6-year average. Again, January 24, we're still kind of coming out of a difficult, challenging 2023 market, but still these figures are pretty epic and shows that there is confidence in the market despite economic challenges, some political uncertainties still. But yeah, some very positive signs there. In terms of price changes, 35% down on last year, which is a great sign. It could indicate that sellers are being more realistic with their original pricing. Buyers are being more optimistic with the prices they're paying and are meeting the sellers' expectations. Or it might be that some sellers are being really greedy and not dropping their prices, but I don't think it's the latter. However, there still is a fundamental issue in the market of overvaluing. I don't think it's something that will ever go away, with it 27% up on the 6-year average. So there is still lots of price reductions happening. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know the negative impact that price reducing can have. Anyone watching this who doesn't know what I'm talking about, reach out to me and I can advise you on that. Withdrawal numbers down 40% on January last year and 30% on this year, which would indicate to me that we've got more serious sellers in the market who are more committed to moving. And I'd say that maybe there is less of the unicorn sellers. And what I mean by that, the ones who go, you said it's worth 5, but if you can get me 6, I'd sell. Doesn't sell, they withdraw. Whereas you've got more realistic sellers who are more committed to the market, which is why I think we're seeing fewer withdrawn properties. Fall throughs, I probably say this every time, but 29.5% increase in fall throughs, victim of our own success. There's been 17% increase in sales agreed, so there's going to be more fall throughs, but number of fall throughs weighing, if that's the right language, sales agreed, means there is an issue there. So properties that have reduced their asking price or take longer to sell on paper have a higher chance of falling through. I probably say it every time I record one of these, but if you've got an issue with your fall through rate, I think the UK average at the moment is around 25%. Um, if your stats are higher than that, around that, or you want them to actually get to single digits, I work with agents who've got single digit fall through rates. Uh, Message me. I'll tell you how they're achieving that from getting sellers legally ready, not just getting to work with conveyancers who offer referrals, but the best conveyancers. And then they're also how can I put this? In terms of the sales progression, as well as getting the sellers legally ready, the way they sales progress them, is a certain way to do it. Reservation agreements, again, probably say every time, Kazil, Brian Mansell, go check it out if you're not already using it. Where have you been? And then you've got to go speak to Ross McKenzie at Open Move as well. Love what Open Move is all about. And then number of relisted properties. These are properties re-entering the market, having failed to sell previously, up 12% on last year and up 20% on the 6-year average. So that indicates to me that there are sellers returning to market with confidence and going, "Do you know what, let's give it another go," having perhaps failed to sell in the 23 sort of market. Around about 46% of properties that withdraw come back on within a year, according to Spectrum 28. That's probably what it's going to be. I have looked at a little bit of data there on that, which says it's the case, but I've not got a big enough data set that I've looked at yet. So yeah, all in all, very positive. But as always, price sensitive. So those who price correctly, market in the correct manner, choose the right agent are going to sell. Those who price too high, don't have very good marketing and choose a cheap agent, probably aren't going to sell. It's literally that 50-50 camp of whether you have that flip of a coin chance of selling. You look at the agent that you're looking to use. Right, on to the second page. Zoom out a bit more on this, or zoom in actually. What have we got? So new listings, average asking price is about 415.5 in January 24, whereas it sits at January 25 now. And I actually had stats this on my other screen, which you will not see me recording. So bear with me whilst I look at this. As you can tell, as always, one take with these. So the average asking price of new listings in January 25 was 70. What am I looking at? Sorry, 70. Wow, blimey. 17,500 and 4.34% higher than December 2024. So a big rise there. And just over £7,000 and 1.75% higher than January last year. So again, clearly increased confidence with sellers asking a higher asking price, or agents valuing higher as well. Perhaps as interest rates have come down, wage growth has grown, confidence returns to market, those prices have gone up as well. Pounds per square foot has gone from 365 to 403 for the year, and then from 375 to 405 in a month. That works out at a 7.45% increase month on month and 10.41% year on year. Again, probably say this every single time, but if anyone wants to find out more about pounds per square foot data, reach out to me. I'll happily discuss that with you. But if you've not already looked at it, I'd strongly recommend you go check out housemetric.co.uk. Sales agreed average asking price. So this is the properties that had a sale agreed in January 25 versus December 24 and January 24. We're not talking completed data. We're talking went under offer in January. So it's 342.5 a year ago, 356.5 in December. Currently sits at 354.5. So in terms of the numbers there, the average asking price month on month is about 2.5 grand or 0.66% lower. And it's about £12,000 and 3.5% up on a year ago. So pretty good signs there. And then pounds per square foot is at 345. It was 329 a year ago and 340 in December. That's 1.47% higher than a month ago and almost 5% higher than a year ago. So again, positive figures there in terms of activity levels and pricing. So next thing I'm going to move on to is net mortgage approvals for house purchases. And this is where I need the data. Where are we? Right, okay. So there were 66,500 mortgage approvals in December 2024. That's the latest data. That's a 1.22% increase on November, the previous month, a whopping 31.68% increase on December 2023. Plus, it was 6.24% higher than the 12-month average for the whole of 2024. So really, really positive signs there. And it's actually only 0.62% below the 10-year average for December. So across the last 10 years, you think of majority of that time has been much lower interest rates. The fact that mortgage approvals are only 0.62% below the 10-year average for December, I think is a really, really strong sign of the market. The next thing that we're moving on, so net mortgage approvals are a future indicator of where transaction levels are probably going to be in a few months' time once those completions have gone through. In terms of looking at previous data, we've got property transactions, which will show us what's happened in the market already. So this is based on December completion data. Again, it's always going to take a bit of time to run through, but transactions in December were 4% higher than the previous month, November, 20% up on a year ago. They were 6.5% higher than the 12-month average 2024, and they were only 4.2% below the 10-year average. So again, this is transactions in December, probably got agreed in the summer, probably went to market in the spring. So we're talking 9 months ago, arguably. Look at where the confidence in the market is now compared to 9 months ago. I think that 4.2% below the 10-year average. I think by the end of this year, watch your space. I think it will be closer to the 10-year average. I think over the last probably 50 years, I think the average is 1.2 million transactions. We're looking like we're going to get a 5% increase this year from 1.1 to 1.15, if my maths is right. 1.15 million transactions is pretty good market. It's not terrible. It's not amazing. Obviously, we'd love the COVID times of getting close to 1.5 millions or pre-recession, where it was closest to 2 million. But yeah, 1.15 million's not too bad. It's about a 3% turnover. And if you look at your own market and go, well, how many chimney pots are there owner occupied or rented out, minus social housing, if you work out 3% turnover, that will give you an idea of your size of market. So your total addressable market. If you want any help with that, reach out to me. And then the last thing, which does impact on really mortgage approvals and then forward, is your transaction numbers, is inflation rate. And this is probably the one that interests me the most. I've tracked inflation back over the past few hundred years, and sure, it's been tough. Yes, things cost more money than they have done. But a little bit of inflation is not a bad thing. A bit like house price growth is not a bad thing. House prices going up within reason actually help people make moves because they can utilize that equity. So in terms of the inflation numbers, in December it dropped surprisingly to 2.5%. It ended the year on an average of 2.53%, bearing in mind the government target was 2%. The 10-year average was 2.98%, so below the 10-year average for inflation. And it was 4% a year before that, and 2 years before it was 7.37%. And then obviously, sorry, start again. The annual average for 2023 was 7.37%. And there was double-digit inflation a couple of years ago. So I think we've done pretty well to get where we are today. So that is kind of the market update there from the stats I put out every month. I'm going to run through, as usual, the house price indexes. I'm not going to spend too much time on them today. But what I would recommend is do go and read my LinkedIn newsletter where I go through the market update in more detail. Also, please do listen to episode 157, I'm going to say, of my podcast with Roger Martin Fagg, behavioral economist, keynote speaker, an absolute goat when it comes to the economy and what impact it's going to have on the property market. So yeah, please do go listen to that conversation because he really, really knows his stuff and he's got some real positive thoughts on where the market's going to be in 2025. Right, so the last few bits that I'm going to run through. So Rightmove house price index. As I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So prices are 1.8% ahead of last year. Again, average asking price of new listings. If you look here on the bullet point, yes, they are nearly 9%, 9,000 pound below May 2024 record, reflecting the constraints on buyer affordability. But it's the largest jump in prices at the start of the year since 2020. So very positive there. Number of new properties coming to market, 11% up on a year ago. If you look at the number of buyers contacting estate agents for properties for sale since Boxing Day, 9% ahead of last year. And yeah, sales agreed up 11%. So some real positive figures there. You'll then see here that yeah, more interest rates, mortgages not really changing much. Again, go check out my update in terms of swap rates, gilt yields, and all those sorts of things. Roger also talks about it on the podcast. One other thing he talks about on the podcast, which is very interesting, which I would have mentioned before, is this bit here: affordability to purchase your first home. Everyone does house price to earnings ratio on one salary households. Majority of properties are purchased from two incomes, and if you look at the average earnings of a two income household, 4.5 times their salary, and then look at the average asking price of first time buyer property. That is why first time buyers continue to be the most common buyer group, supported by Bank of Mum and Dad and grandparents as well. So just thought I would share that on Rightmove. Average stock per agent has remained pretty steady, and time to secure a buyer has cracked up a little bit and is pretty much where it was last year. If you haven't seen in the industry press today, and I have spoken about this previously, it's in Property Industry Eye, Estate Agents Today, and Negotiator, I think. Rightmove have come out again to say February is statistically the best month to sell your house. I think you have like a 67% chance of selling your house if you list in February. So basically, list in February. There's clearly buyer demand there. There's perhaps not as many properties on the market as a spring. And yeah, less competition from other sellers, more buyer demand makes complete sense. I think unsurprisingly, followed by March and April are also good months to sell your property. So highest chance of selling them in the quickest time, February, March, April. I think traditionally people go, let's wait for Easter, let's get the bank holiday out of the way, let's tidy up what we need to, then we're going to sell it. Garden looks nice, the sun is shining, da 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 da. Sooner rather than later is the best time to do it. So I think that's the Rightmove market update. In terms of Zoopla, so they've seen about a 2% increase in house price inflation, 13% year-on-year increase in buyer demand, and the 17% of homeowners looking to move now or in the next 2 years is a really interesting one, which I'll go into in some more detail. But yeah, buyer demand up 13%, number of sales agreed up 12%, new supply up 11%, and stock owners sale up 10%. So positive news there, but it's clearly showing again demand is outstripping supply, which is good to see. This is a good point here. Sales market momentum from 24 definitely spills into 2025, which is good to see. Stamp duty, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Again, read the newsletter. But looking at this data, it would not appear that the stamp duty changes or reverting back to what it was at the end of March is going to have too much of an impact on transaction levels or activity levels, should I say. Sure, there might be a dip off at the start of April when it changes, as we've seen with stamp duty changes in the past, or what you see with budgets and elections beforehand, after. But I think people are just going to crack on with it. They're manageable changes in terms of the cost of moving home. And yeah, I think that the stamp duty, as much as I without going political, I think that it should have been kept where it was, or even actually incentivized even further. But as much as I don't agree with it changing, it's not going to impact the market perhaps as much as we think. Just on that point as well, we've talked about mass exodus of landlords from the market with all the different legislation, tax, interest rates, all those sort of implications. Whilst there are 100% landlords leaving the market, it's about 15% of the market are ex-rentals, about 10% of purchases are buy-to-let mortgages. So there is definitely still an appetite for buy-to-let. It's just knowing where to look. So any agents watching this who want help with landlord lead generation, please do reach out to me. Whilst we're on the Zoopla topics, this is really interesting. So they're consumer survey that they did in December, year on year. So renters buying now in the next 2 years up from 18% to 22%. So really renters are going to be your first time buyers typically. It shows that their appetite is still there. Probably their rental prices keep going through the roof, and they think, do you know what, if we've got the money from mum, dad, grandparents, relatives, etc., let's just go buy a house. Borrowing money is not getting any cheaper and house prices are going up. It just makes sense to buy for them. Much prefer to pay their own mortgage rather than paying the landlord's mortgage. In terms of something I mentioned earlier on in this recording, because we've seen a bit of house price growth, we've seen mortgage payments come down ever so slightly. That has meant that an increase in homeowners actually willing to buy or looking to buy in the next 2 years, up from 15 to 17%. And then the really interesting one there is the homeowners who've got no plans to move but are watching the market is increased from 21% to 25%. So one in four homeowners are keeping an eye on the market. And I think the stat from Zoopla is 4 million have claimed their home. And 27% of those who've claimed their home go on to market their property. So it highlights that people are keeping an eye on what's going on in the market, which is one of the reasons I do these updates. So the estate agents watching this can then relay and educate their market on what's going on. And who knows, for a record price, or if you find them the house of their dreams, maybe they'd look at moving. And in terms of a dream price or a dream home campaign, there's some great direct mail or social media, text, email campaigns you can do. Dream price, um, or dream home. Message me if you want to know what those campaigns are, and I can talk to you about that. And then, yeah, about 52% of the market just have no plans to move whatsoever. So, yeah, the glass half full in me says every home is on the market. It's just the more motivated ones that put for sale signs up. So, yeah, try and create a market rather than just reacting to a market would be my viewpoint there. So that is Zoopla. So moving on to land registry, do you know what I have actually just realised in terms of my market update? I didn't run through this, which is terrible. House price index update from the major commentators on this. So top to bottom, Rightmove, Zoopla are on asking price data from new listings. Land registries on completed data, which is arguably several months out of date. Nationwide Halifax is on mortgage approval data. eServe is on completed data, mortgage and cash, but doesn't include, I'm going to say, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then home.co.uk is asking price data. So as you can see there, there's a mix, but essentially what a half a dozen of those reports are saying as an average, 0.25% monthly increase and a 2% annual increase there. So always good to know what those figures are. If anyone is quoting those in the living room when they say, "Oh, Simon, you said 500,000, but Zoopla said the market's gone up this." Yes, Mr. Seller, but that's based on average asking prices. Here's what the actual sale prices are saying. So you've kind of got your portals, which are showing kind of, let's say, where prices are now or confidence in pricing. You've got mortgage approval data, which is it's kind of sale agreed, and then your land registry is going, well, that's ones in the past, that's several months behind us. But if you actually follow the pattern of completions in the past, then you've got new asking prices and then mortgage approval. You 100% will see a pattern of where prices are going. And again, if you're not sure on that, just reach out to me and I can run through it. So on the land registry data, so that's published on 15th January. So that's the latest data for November. Average UK house price 290,000, annually going up 3.3% and monthly 0.4%. And the thing I wanted to highlight here was that the average UK property price is just shy of 232,000 at the start of 2020, just before we went into COVID. And as we're ending 2024 in terms of land reg data, it now sits at just under 290,000. So in terms of pricing, that is just under 25% higher than 2020, so 5 years ago. And that's an average gain of £57,500 for UK homeowners in that time. So just something good to know there. Right, last couple of bits we're going to run through. So the lenders, so nationwide, all kind of say casual optimism. I don't know if that's the right language to use there. But it's showing that the clear thing here is that whilst payments as percentage of take home pay has come down, it's still running above the long run average. I can't remember if I discussed this with Roger. I definitely discussed it also with Kevin Hollinrake, Shadow Housing Minister. That podcast has not been released yet, but do keep your eyes out for that one. That's an epic conversation, really, really intriguing, from the founder of Hunters in 1992. So watch out for that one. That is an exclusive right here on the update. Source of deposit amongst first-time buyers. Again, you can see I said it earlier, and people say, how do people get on the ladder? First-time buyers, bank of mum and dad, relatives, grandparents. So they're being gifted or they're inheriting money. Home ownership rate dropped down post-recession. Things are obviously less affordable, and they're steadily going back up. And then in terms of home ownership and owning it outright, you can obviously see that the retired people are paying off their mortgages and they own it outright. That equity they then got, they're gifting to children, grandchildren, etc. So you can see a recurring theme. And then you've got the pricing data here. So annual price change nationwide, just over 4%, and 0.1% on the month. So yeah, 10 grand up, 10 grand up on 2 years ago, which is positive signs considering everything we've gone through. And the last chart here on nationwide, again, just really good chart. I would definitely be utilizing in your socials, blogs, video content. And again, you can see the house price earning ratios. Whilst it has come down, it's still ahead of that long run average there. But as I said earlier, and Roger says in the podcast, think two incomes, not one, for the majority of home movers. So Halifax average house prices ended 2024 with annual growth of 3.3%, slightly down in December on their most recent update. But again, just like with Nationwide, pretty cautious optimism. All these reports are kind of talking about the stamp duty thresholds and the potential impact that might have. But as I said, the January data kind of supports that it shouldn't have too much of an impact in the long run for 2025. And then if we just scroll down here, again, in terms of average price on mortgage data from Halifax, about 10 grand up on a year ago. So quarterly change 1.4% and 3.3% up on the annual. Um, in terms of eServe, I think on this one I wasn't really going to spend too much time on it. I think this was a key bit though. Second paragraph. This year-end performance reflects the stabilizing effects of improving consumer confidence and a market that has adjusted to economic challenges. So whilst there are economic challenges, we have adjusted to them. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant way to put it. I think that's just what I'm going to leave there. In terms of property marks latest housing insight report. If I just scroll down here, they're saying house prices remain broadly static. They're saying sales volumes have increased. Prospective buyer registrations have nudged up ever so slightly. Again, this data is going to be a little bit lagged. Viewing numbers have seen a slight fall, they're saying. And then we don't need to look at that. New supply has dropped slightly. Again, where the data is, it's a seasonal trend, I think. Stock levels edge slightly down, but they are, again, still higher. Market appraisals have dipped. Again, I think that's a seasonal data. I know I keep saying that. Again, seasonal data on sales agreed. But this was a really interesting one. Number of properties achieving asking price near doubles when compared to the previous month. So if buyers see value for money, they're paying the price, which is good news. And then time taken to exchange. Again, I've spoken about it at the start, but obviously time kills deals. The longer a property's on the market, the longer it's going through the sales progression process, the more likely it is to fall through. So try and get your processes in place, but you can get that to complete sooner rather than later. Um, on that point, I find it interesting when agents have said to me, it's all well and good saying do this and do that, it will speed up the process, but everyone else in our town is no good. So that's an issue. When I look at the data all across the UK, you will see that certain agents in the town, from sale agreed to completion, some are doing it days, weeks, months quicker than others. So there's clearly a process to follow there on that. But yeah, it's quite outrageous that still 35 to 40% of properties are taking at least 17 plus weeks to go through, which is crazy. But again, on that point, goes back to the stamp duty thing. Any purchases, sales agreed in January, the chance of that getting through before the stamp duty deadline are like single digit percentage wise chance in terms of doing that. Of course, there might be no chain, freehold, cash buyer. That might happen quicker. But if anyone is thinking they're going to get it through before the end of March, I think that's quite naive or deluded. So it does give me confidence that the people buying now appreciate they're going to be paying higher stamp duty, and that gives me the confidence that that demand is going to stay there in the market going forward. Subject, of course, that there's no black swan events that could impact things. If interest rates stay where they are, we see a couple of base rate drops that we're expecting. Swap rates, gilt yields don't go through the roof, whatever should all be okay there. And then the last one, home.co.uk. I mean, there's a few bits on this, but I think in terms of what I always highlight on this is total stock of property. So as you can see, compared to a few years ago, significantly more properties for sale. But when you look at it post pre-COVID, whilst it's a little bit more, it's not massively up, which is why we've got a pretty balanced uh, supply demand level, which is why prices didn't fall off a cliff when a lot of commentators said they would in the end of 22, 23. And then the last bit I want to run through, I think I've already touched on it, but UK long-term borrowing cost reached a 27-year high. Industry experts have blamed on the government's tax and spending plans alongside sluggish economic growth. The yield on 10-year gilts has reached 4.9%, highest since 2008, and the 30-year gilts hit their highest since 1998. So just something to bear in mind that kind of interest rates are not really going to get any lower than where they are now. I every day I keep seeing commentators say we've pretty much found our normal level of interest rate. So for any buyers out there who are thinking, let's wait for house price to come down a bit or interest rates to come down a bit, just like they've been waiting for a couple of years now, and that hasn't happened. So that is the end of the January property market update. Hope that's been useful as ever. Stay tuned, as I said, for the March, start of March, where I'll be updating the February property market. And yeah, anyone watching this, if you've got any questions, please do reach out to me. Any feedback, let me know. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to make sure that you are getting notifications when these go live. And if you could do me one small favor, if you enjoy the content, you haven't done it previously, please do just drop me a review on Google or just give me a shout on socials. I'd really appreciate it. And that just leaves me to sign out and see you at the start of March for the February property market update.